Racism does not only operate through laws, policing, or economic systems. One of its most damaging forms lives inside the mind. Today we are talking about internalized racism in the Black community, what it is, how it harms individuals, families, and our collective power, and how we begin to heal. If you want a written breakdown of this conversation, I encourage you to read the full blog post. The link is in the bio. And if you want ongoing analysis and tools like this, subscribe to the Black Metrics newsletter. Welcome to the Black Metrics. Internalized racism occurs when Black people absorb anti-Black beliefs from society and turn them inward against themselves and one another. Psychologists describe it as the internalization of racial oppression by the racially subordinated. It can be conscious or unconscious and often reflects beliefs learned through media, institutions, and culture that position whiteness as the standard and Blackness as inferior. This can show up as shame about being Black, wanting to change hair, skin tone, or speech to appear less Black, distancing from other Black people, colorism, respectability politics, or denying racism altogether because acknowledging it feels overwhelming. Because these ideas are normalized, many people do not recognize them as internalized racism at all. Research consistently links internalized racism to poorer mental health outcomes among Black and African American populations. Studies show higher anxiety, depression, and chronic stress, along with lower self-esteem and self-worth. In some cases, internalized racism predicts psychological distress even more strongly than direct experiences of racism. When someone internalizes the belief that Black and African American people are less capable or less deserving, every struggle feels like personal failure instead of evidence of systemic barriers. Internalized racism does not stay at the individual level. In families, it appears when children receive messages about which skin tones, hair textures, or behaviors are acceptable. Often these messages are framed as protection, but they still reinforce shame. At the community level, internalized racism fuels colorism, respectability politics, and good Black versus bad Black narratives. Instead of challenging systems, we begin policing one another. This fragmentation weakens collective power and keeps communities divided. A painful question many people ask is why some Black celebrities and content creators publicly degrade Black people or Black culture. This behavior is not random. It often reflects internalized racism, structural incentives, and greed. Media industries frequently reward Black voices that distance themselves from the community or frame racism as a personal failure instead of a structural issue. For some individuals, criticizing Blackness becomes a pathway to wealth, visibility, and proximity to power. Fame does not erase internalized racism. In environments where whiteness is treated as the norm, some begin to see themselves as exceptions rather than part of a collective. There is also an economic reality. Anti-Blackness sells, outrage generates clicks, contracts, and attention. Some knowingly trade community harm for profit. The damage is real. These narratives reinforce internalized racism and deepen mistrust within the community. Healing begins with naming internalized racism for what it is. When you name it, you move the source of harm from your character to a system you were conditioned by. A simple practice is writing down moments when you felt less than because you are Black and reminding yourself that those beliefs were taught by racism, not truth. Racism teaches a distorted story. Healing requires replacing it with a truthful one, reconnecting with Black and African American history, pan-African civilizations, and histories of resistance restores context and dignity. When people know where they come from, lies lose their power. Research on racial trauma shows that self-compassion, cognitive approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy, mindfulness, and racial trauma-informed therapy can reduce the mental health effects of internalized racism. Healing is not about denial. It is about clarity, self-worth, and grounding, collective healing. Internalized racism is learned socially, and it heals socially. Within group sanctuary matters, spaces where Black people can speak freely without minimizing or explaining their experiences are essential. Community healing transforms shame into agency. The Black Metrics exists because data tells us what is happening, but healing requires tools that help us unlearn and rebuild. Coming soon, we will introduce a community-centered tool designed to help deconstruct internalized anti-Black beliefs, reclaim identity, and heal collectively. Throughout February, we will also share Pan-African history to support this work. If you want these resources delivered directly to you, subscribe to the Black Metrics newsletter. It's free, and the link is in the bio. Internalized racism is not who we are. It is something that happened to us. Healing is possible individually, collectively, and historically. Read the full blog post for deeper context. Subscribe to the newsletter to stay grounded in the data and the work. This is Marcel, and this is the Black Metrics. Understand the data, reclaim the truth, build the future.